and welcome back. I'm always excited. I always think of this as opening day, like in Major League Baseball. And it doesn't really mean anything, but in my Walter Mitty mind, I get to be the minister on opening day. I'm like Sandy Koufax. So it's very nice to have everyone back. We had a full summer, but it's really nice to see you all back together. And I kind of wanted to explain the change in our services and our schedule when we go into summer. And it took me a long time to understand this because when I first came to OCBC with my family, we came the first weekend after Mother's Day in 1999, and we really liked it. And then I swear it seemed like a couple weeks went by, and all of a sudden nobody was here anymore. And I didn't understand that we kind of go on to this modified summer schedule. And as a new person, I thought we were done. I didn't realize we came back or when we came back. So it's always the first Sunday after Labor Day. In a lot of my Dharma talks, I mentioned that I'm a computer programmer and a math person. And I live off of rules and algorithms. So I'm always looking for rules. And we have a really good rule for how we handle the summer. So the thing that's signaling a change is Obon Festival. My daughter took this photograph. It's one of my favorites. She took this picture at Obon while we were dancing. So after Obon, we go on this modified summer schedule. And we go to what we call Zoom Dharma gatherings. So over the summer, usually it's 6 weeks between the end of our festival and the first and Labor Day is about 6 weeks. So those are the two goalposts. We have when the festival's over and through Labor Day, we meet 6 times online, and we met live on Zoom, and then we would record it, and then we would upload it to our YouTube channel, our OCBC YouTube channel. So you could see here that we had Reverend Wondra, myself, we had Ellen Crane, Reverend Crane, and our MAs, Janet Arima, Ann Nakahira, and Matthew Stoles did a very good job for us. And during this time, we were still doing the flowers on the altar. We always had the flowers up to date. Reverend Wondra and I met yesterday around 9:30, and we moved everything off the Nigene, except for the giant things. And we dusted, we dry mopped, and then we wet mopped. And so there should be no dust. So, because it's been sitting here, right, since Obon Festival, and we wanted it to look really nice for our first day back. And then the other thing that we do is on Labor Day, we always have a junior YBA conference. So that's, I kind of remember that. We go from Obon, 6 weeks, Labor Day conference, and then the first Sunday after Labor Day, we come back in person. But this was really well done. It was at the Gardena Temple, hosted by Gardena and Nishi. There were 90 high school age students there, and 40 of them were from OCBC. And the students lead workshops, and one of them was called The Unfair Game, and I wrote it up as a Dharma talk. It was very interesting. It was a very interesting game, and it was very profound, but that's for a later day. So for today, I picked my title, Buddhist While You Work, because I thought it sounded close to whistle while you work. So I wanted to talk about getting back to work and the meaning of work in our lives. Sometimes we tend to hyper-focus on our careers, our jobs, and especially our salary. It becomes a number. We become this number. And we tend to find our identity only in the work we do. But Buddhism is for everyday life. And we're connected to all things and all people. And our authentic self and the meaning we find is in all the relationships we make throughout the day. So this talk is going to try to open us up to see importance to our life that's other than just our employment. And also I wanted to mention that mothers, stay-at-home mothers and fathers, that's a really hard job. It's very meaningful, and you don't really get a salary, right? I read somewhere that a stay-at-home parent, their salary should be like at least 6 figures. It's so much work. So I wanted to talk about Labor Day. It's a day where we honor and reflect on the working people of this country, service workers, everyone that helps us get through the day, people that keep our society moving in the right direction. Labor Day is celebrated as a symbolic end of the summer. It is also considered the last day of the year when it's fashionable to still wear white. That's kind of old and corny. I don't think we do that anymore. I never think about that. It's also the beginning of a new school year. And it's also opening day of family services. Also, Labor Day marks the beginning of the NFL and the college football seasons. So NCAA teams usually play their first games the week before or on Labor Day weekend, with the NFL traditionally playing their first game the Thursday following Labor Day. So we just had that the other night, right? The Detroit Lions upset the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas. And so today, opening day of the NFL, which is a very important religious holiday for me. Labor Day, the first Monday in September, is the creation of the labor movement and is dedicated to social and economic achievements of American workers. It constitutes a yearly national tribute to the contributions workers have made to the strength, prosperity, and well-being of our country. I've also noticed that we get Labor Day and Memorial Day mixed up a lot, too, because they're Monday holidays. So I wanted to share this with you. I don't think this is done anymore because everybody gets online content. But at home, I used to get the LA Times, and there was a Parade magazine insert every Sunday. And once in a while, they would do this themed version of what people earn their annual report. And it's really kind of sad in a way. It just lists your name, your age, your profession, and your salary. And that's it. And like that becomes a fixed identity for us. And we tend to only see value through that lens. And I also kind of noticed that what our country values seemed a little bit off, like nurses, childcare, daycare, teachers. Their salaries seemed low in comparison to others. And so it didn't even seem like an accurate measure of one's value based on these numbers. But I would always look at this and see where I fit. You know, where was I on here? Was I young enough for how little money I was making? Or, you know, is my age tracking my salary appropriately? And so I think this is kind of a dangerous message to send to people. So I listen to Tony Kornheiser a lot on ESPN, and he often quotes Don Ohlmeyer, who was one of the founders of NBC Sports. Don Ohlmeyer always said, and my dad always said this as well, the answer to all your questions is money. Ohlmeyer might have meant money in the context of sports. On the other hand, Ohlmeyer might have intended his comment universally, regardless of the context, that the answer to all your questions is money. And in Buddhism, there's nothing inherently evil or wrong with money. There's nothing bad about making money. I just think it's dangerous if it's the only reason you do something. So, you know, on the board or in my life, if I find myself making a decision only based on money, I think that can be dangerous. And so, like when you're looking for a job, I would be careful not to only look at the salary, right? You got to look at the commute, the benefits, who you get to work with. Can you do online work? You know, those kind of things. It's the whole package. It's the whole package. Are you going to enjoy the work you're doing? And so I think when you change jobs, you really want to look at the entire package of that career you're choosing and not just solely focus on a number. So I wanted to share this with you. There was a famous fashion photographer named Irving Penn who died in 2009. And he usually did high fashion, but he decided to take pictures of normal, everyday working people, and he did this in the early 1950s. He passed away in 2009, and they immediately scheduled a tribute or an exhibit of all of his work of taking pictures of tradespeople. And they exuded an elegance, a sense of power and pride in their work. And it really was meaningful for a lot of people to see this. So I wanted to let you hear this quick little clip from a podcast about being happy in your work.
Which brings me to the Irving Penn photo exhibit now at the Getty. Friends kept telling me I had to see it because it held some clue to human happiness. And today, as I roar up the 405, I glance, as I often do, through the tinted windows of other people's cars to see how happy they are. And damn, if it's not true that the better the car, the happier the occupant appears to be. Really, it's a disturbing experiment, but you should try it sometime. Me, I wonder, was this always true? Or was there a time when even unfamous, unsuccessful people could be happy? Irving Penn was a Vogue photographer in the Golden Age, but this exhibit is called Small Trades, and it's portraits of genuine working-class people. Butchers, bakers, pipe fitters, bricklayers, street sweepers, news sellers, car washers. Penn pulled these folks into the studio and posed them like fashion models in their dirty work clothes. This was around 1950, but the people are mostly middle-aged products of an even earlier time, maybe, as they say, a more innocent time. And sure enough, just as my friends had warned, the small tradespeople in these pictures all look strangely content. They stand with a curious dignity, smiling back straights, apparently proud of what they do. Longshoremen or furnace tender, milkman, plasterer, carpenter, seamstress. My favorite picture is of two London lorry washers. Tall, skinny guys in their 60s with flat caps and hip boots. Their body language is lighthearted, theatrical, even arrogant. Me, I could stand in my pre-torn designer jeans staring at these guys for hours. I mean, they look so perfectly certain of their place on Earth. I'm pretty sure they would say they were uninterested in cornering the lorry washing market, or even creating a lorry washing reality show.
So Irving Penn takes photographs of working people in the early 1950s in New York, in England, and in France, in Paris. And so when he said a lorry washer, do you know what that is? It's a taxi, British taxis. They speak their own language in England. They have different names for everything. So this is Irving Penn. He lived from June 16th, 1917, and he passed away October 7th, 2009. He was an American photographer known for his portraiture and fashion photography. So he dies in October 7th of 2009, and then they immediately put together a tribute to him on October 15th, 2009. So he must have been really famous. I've never heard of him. And then the other thing is I'm going to go to my yearly doctor's checkup on Monday, and it's in Laguna Beach. And as I drive south, the cars change, right? From Toyotas and Hondas to Rivias and Teslas and Ferraris and Maseratis. And I do kind of look at these people and think, you know, if I just had that car, my life would be just perfect. I mean, I think that. But I know it's not true, but it's so hard not to treat objects as a relationship that makes your life have meaning. So it's a test for me not to do that Monday morning. So I wanted to show you some of these images that he took. I mean, these are service workers who are experts in their trade and provide an invaluable service, and we should really honor them, respect them, and look them in the eye. And I wrote down what they're doing here. This is a busboy in Paris, and I guess in French it's called a commis. These are butchers in Paris. It's pronounced boucher. But they look really self-content. They look very centered and happy, right? They know who they are, and they're happy in their station. And that idea where, if you really enjoy what you're doing, you never work a day in your life, they look like that. The other thing somebody told me too, a woman told me that when she grew up in Chicago in the 1950s, it wasn't so much whether you loved your job and whether it was super valuable or prestigious. She said her family also got meaning from the work because it enabled you to support your family, right? The job made it available for you to own a home and to send your kids to college. So going to work was noble in the sense that it helped your family and it gave you a sense of security. So that also has deep meaning. So this person is from Paris, and I think it says fromage. Does that mean cheese? Okay, good. It's a cheese seller at Chevrier. I only know English and a little Spanish. And this one I really liked. We really don't have these anymore, right? A lot of fields and industries disappear. This is like Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins. This is a chimney sweep. From London, 1950. And then I think these women are from London. They're cleaning women. So one thing I realized before doing this talk is there's not a lot of women in these pictures, right? Because women really didn't go out into the workforce that much in the 1950s. So I'm sure if we redid this, it would be at least 50-50 of all the women that have entered the workforce over the last several decades. What do you think this is? This is a fireman. He's a New York fireman. We don't have this anymore, really. I remember this when I was a little boy. A man would drive a truck to your house and actually deliver ice cold milk to your door, right? We don't even do that with newspapers. So this is a milkman in New York, 1951. And I like this guy. This guy's a plumber. And man, he is all in, right? His chest is out, his shoulders are back, and he's got the biggest wrench I have ever seen. I mean, this guy's large and in charge and very proud and happy. I had to write these all down because sometimes I couldn't tell who they were. But all 6 of these pictures are people that are grounded, centered. They're finding meaning in the interactions they make in their life and the people they help and the people they meet. I mean, if you've got a leak in your house, the plumber coming to your house is just, it's so wonderful. You know, they can save your house. They're heroes. So I wanted to give a modern example. There's Modelo beer commercials on now, and they usually talk about people, the fighters. And at first it started out with actual fighters, like people who actually fought, like MMA or lightweight fighting. And then they started having people that created a career for themselves, like a tattoo artist or somebody who tricks out cars, customizes cars. But this is the most recent one, and I really liked it. The person in the middle, he runs a bodega. He runs a liquor store, and he works really long hours. He probably doesn't make a huge salary, but he's like the center stone, the foundation of his community. Everybody from the community comes to shop and buy their dinner there. They come for lunch. He cooks. He serves. And it's like an oasis in the city where people can meet and interact, and they become a family. And so, you know, they have these working man and working women commercials that kind of elevate everyday people who are really motivated and happy and find meaning in the interactions they make with others. They're part of the whole. They're part of something bigger than themselves. They're aware of what they contribute, and they're also really aware of what they receive and the support they get from those who live in their city. So I was a programmer for 30 years, and I became a minister full-time in 2017. And it was the best decision I ever made, right? I love what I do. I get to set my own schedule. I get to set my priorities. I do something that's very meaning, not only to others, but really meaning to myself. I think if you take being a minister as a package, it's much, much better than the experience I had as a programmer as a package. And so it really was a really important decision to kind of put salary on an equal playing field with all the other things that make your work life important. So I wanted to close with this quote. I've looked into it a lot. I love the Beatles, and I jump around between John Lennon being my favorite Beatle or George Harrison being my favorite Beatle. I've looked this quote up, and they say it might be apocryphal, which means it's possible he never said it. Most quotes on the internet are things that no one ever said, but it gets attributed to them. And this is another Dharma talk, but most of the quotes from the Buddha on the internet, he never said it. He never said. So there's a book out called I Can't Believe It's Not Buddha, listing all the quotes. And one of the quotes on the internet that's super popular, actually they traced the source down. It was Miley Cyrus. Yeah, from her Facebook and Instagram page. So just be careful. Just when you buy a shirt or a cup with a Buddha quote on it, you might want to just, like my son say, just kiss the brakes. Kiss the brakes. If it sounds too modern or too new agey, it's probably not a quote from the historical Buddha. It might be a great quote, but he didn't say it. So I want to read this to you. He may or may not have said it. I don't care. John Lennon said that when I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. The reason why they think he didn't say this is supposedly he said this when he was like in kindergarten, right? So he probably didn't say this in kindergarten. And sometimes even John Lennon, I don't know if you saw the movie Yesterday, that movie Yesterday. At the end of the film, we find out in this alternate universe that John Lennon's still alive, right? They knock on the door. John Lennon answers the door at 60 years old. And I saw it with my daughter because she knows I love the Beatles. And I was just crying. She's never really seen me cry. I was just bawling. And I think the message to the story is in this alternate universe, he doesn't become a Beatle. He doesn't become a musician. And he lives the life that he really always wanted to live, was to be an artist. He really wanted to do art. And in this alternate universe, he's not famous, he's not rich, but he's alive and he's contented and he's happy. And so I thought that was really, really a meaningful message to the film. So I hope this helps you be Buddhist while you work. So, whether you work at McDonald's or you work at a finance law firm, you want to connect with people, you want to have meaning, and you also want to realize how much you're receiving for doing the work beyond just salary. So, salary is important, and I think everybody should get paid as much as they can. I'm always for football players that hold out, but that's not the only measure of a successful life. I mean, if you can work and provide for your family and put food on the table and you're able to get your kids through school, I mean, that is a huge accomplishment and something that you should be very proud of. And so in this way, I think we can find meaning as Buddhists when we really see the whole panorama of causes and conditions that make us who we are, and much more than just beyond a salary or a number. I also think the same is true at school, right? You're more than your grade point, right? It seems like everybody I know has a 4.5. Every car has a thing on it saying my son is a scholar or my daughter is a scholar. It's a bell graph, right? It's a normal distribution. Everybody cannot be getting straight A's in school. And if you can go through UCLA with straight B's or C's and you graduate, you should be very proud of that. It's a huge accomplishment. You either finish or you don't. And it's really important to finish. And so I think we really have to look at the big picture and be settled with who we are and where we fit and what seems authentic to us, and not let media like Parade Magazine make us doubt our commitment to living a long and meaningful life.